Good morning, Knicks Nation. On a cold morning in Central Florida today. I hope you're all warm. I hope you're all well and healthy. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field, along with the first responders who every day are saving lives. And those also that pick up garbage for us to keep our streets and places and villages and cities clean and disease free. And those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women out here trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover the teenagers and children that are the victims of child molestation and pedophilia, the victims of prostitution and child prostitution, pornography and child pornography, human trafficking and sex slavery. Double curses on the perpetrators of these things, double curses upon those who profit from these things, and double curses on the perverts that create this heinous industry. Finally, double blessings on the homeless. Nearly 600,000 men, women, and children homeless in the United States of America, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. So there was a basketball game last night in Madison Square Garden. The New York Knicks defeated the Charlotte Hornets 115-91. And, we knew going in the Knicks were the better team, but we called this a trap game because if they didn't come focused and ready to play, they could get beat, even without Lamelo Ball playing. And there was a lot of excitement at the end of the game because of the in-season tournament and how the point structure works. I still don't quite understand it, but it seemed like it was to the advantage of all the teams last night to run up their scores and create large deficits, large gaps between the winning and losing score, which the Knicks did, and outscoring the Hornets by 24. As always, there was a run made by the Hornets in the third quarter, which can be expected. As I said, all 30 teams in the NBA, this is the league, they're even the worst teams. They always make a run. The thing about the worst teams, which are usually the younger teams, the reason they cannot sustain their run is they make a lot of mistakes in execution down the stretch. They usually make a lot of execution mistakes down the stretch. That's one of the things that differentiate a young team from a team that's a mature winning team, and that's what Charlotte did last night. Made a number of mistakes down the stretch, and the Knicks took advantage of it, and the Knicks were able to hold off. They made an 11-2 run in the third quarter, and the Knicks were able to, and got within 1 point, and the Knicks were able to hold them off and get back in control. And as I mentioned last night, yesterday's video also, it's a game where I was looking for Julius Randle to assert himself against obviously a weaker opponent, not to take them lightly, not to come out too lackadaisical, but to assert himself against them and crush them. And that's what he did last night, pretty much. I mean, he came out gunt in the first quarter, but really it was on the rebounding side where we saw Julius assert himself, as he hadn't. The way he did it last night was actually he had 20 rebounds last night, so he was really being aggressive on the boards, and this is what we needed to see. As far as the shot selection, what I've been noticing is that the shots have been distributed really pretty evenly between four players. Last night was an aberration, but it was just usually Julius, Brunson, RJ, and Quickly. Those are the ones that generally get the lion's share of the shots. It was a little different last night. Brunson only took 9 shots, and Josh Hart took 10 shots. So they did, spread it out a little bit more last night, although it does not reflect itself in their assist numbers at 21. The Knicks are still among the lowest in the NBA in terms of assists. So people will say, well, the ball should move more. And you're right, the ball should move more. But we also have to take into consideration that the ball is mostly in the hands of Jalen Brunson. And he is a one-on-one player. That's his game. He's one-on-one, and he's unguardable basically as a one-on-one player. So you want him to play to his strengths, and that's why you would see stuff. Even though last night Brunson They only took 9 shots, had 7 assists. He definitely was distributing the basketball. And what I liked about that is that it showed Brunson is adaptable to the game. He reads the game and makes the right decision. He has a very high basketball IQ. In fact, if you hear him talk, he's a very intelligent young man. But he's got a very high basketball IQ. I think he graduated from Villanova in 3 years. Yeah, he's really smart. So last night it showed on the floor. He was very judicious in passing the basketball, and he was definitely, not looking for his own shot first last night. He got everybody involved. Randall led with 25 points, quickly 23. Again, I said Randall had 20 rebounds. Ridiculous. He had 4 offensive rebounds, and Mitch Robb had 10 rebounds and 5 offensive rebounds. And of course, the Knicks out-rebounded Charlotte 54-41, which is more what you expect, from a Knicks team. So it was a good night. And this morning, I know the Knicks are still alive, as far as I know, in the in-season tournament. But to me, the biggest thing I'm looking at this morning, as I look at, is the standings. The Knicks are solidly in 5th seed right now. They have the best opponent's points per game in the NBA, giving up only 105 points per game. Actually, in the East, there's a team. I think Minnesota has the best in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure I got that right. No, Houston actually is second to the Knicks in the NBA at this point. Houston is surprising at 8-7. They're really one of the surprise teams of the NBA so far this season. But yeah, Knicks have the best defense opponent's points per game in the NBA. They're solidly in the 5th seed. They have about a 5-point differential, and so all of that bodes well going forward. So yes, some would say, well, they should have beat Charlotte. Listen, you play who's on the schedule. Okay, you play who's on the schedule, and on any given night in the league, any team can beat any team. Lamelo Ball was missing last night, hurt his ankle, which again we've been talking about that since he came in the league. He has superstar talent, but he's not available. Okay, he gets hurt. Last year he played 36 games. He hurt the same ankle this year. I'm thinking, I've seen other players go through that. Steph Curry was the most famous one that went through that, like early in their career, getting a lot of ankle problems. And then eventually it straightened itself out, and he didn't have them again. You would never know he was dealing with that nowadays, but he had some really serious problems early in his career with ankles. So did Kurt Thomas, who used to play for the Knicks. Kurt Thomas was drafted by the Miami Heat, and he had a lot of ankle problems. Kurt Thomas, I think, led the nation in scoring and rebounding when he came out of, I think it was TCU he come out of. But he was having a lot of ankle problems early in his career. It almost looked like it was going to be the end of his career. But again, he came back. So maybe that's LaMelo's situation, because he's having a lot of ankle problems early. Maybe he just, whatever it is, they need time to get it back. And of course, they're going to give him all the time he needs, because he's a superstar talent. So, yeah, but he was out. But that don't mean anything, because we know Durant was out on Sunday and the Knicks lost, right? So LaMelo was out, and Miles Bridges, has been really coming on strong. And I like that Julius Randle made him work on defense. One of the ways you attack a player that's been really hot offensively is attacking him on the defensive end. So in other words, Julius went at him strong to make him use energy. See, it takes a lot of energy to play in the league. I know it sounds crazy, but it is true. And especially to play at a high level on both ends of the floor and doing it for 82-game grind, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And so when you make a highly productive offensive player work hard on the defensive end, it takes away from their offense, because they're not used to having to expend that type of energy. So the Knicks, what they did is they would get Julius one-on-one with Miles Bridges. And then they would have Julius bang, which he did with Miles Bridges. And that was a tremendous strategy. I like seeing stuff like that, the game within the game, where you see the Knicks strategizing and taking advantage where they should. And they did. So that worked out very well. So the next game is Detroit tomorrow. Now, the thing is about this is Detroit is the front end of yet another back-to-back. The Knicks have Detroit tomorrow, then they travel to Toronto on Friday. Yeah, so it's a back-to-back. Will be their fifth back-to-back of the season. Okay. Again, the good thing is that they're getting them done early. Most teams get about 11 back-to-backs. Some teams get more. A couple of teams get less. But 11, I find, is about what everybody gets. And I think the Knicks got 11 this year. So this will be their fifth one. And they got two more coming in December, aside from this. So by the time December's over, they would have had 7, which means they only have 4 more for the rest of the season. Like, you got other teams like Miami, pretty much their whole March schedule is filled with back-to-backs. See? So some teams are going to be pulling back later in the season, whereas I'm expecting the Knicks to be surging because they're getting through this tough part of their schedule. This is 17 games in, and they're 10-7. This is really good for what we're expecting with the grind that they're on right now. And so this is good. Everything is looking up for the Knicks going forward. So yeah, this one's in the books. The Knicks again solidly in the 5th seed, 5-point differential, 7-3 in their last 10. You can't expect much better than that with the schedule dealt them in the early part of this season. So they're doing very well. Again, we got Detroit in New York tomorrow. Hey, listen, Detroit. I think they won like 2 games. Yeah, they've only won 2 games this year, but that's called. You should know by now. That's called a trap game. The Knicks are clearly the better team, but Detroit is hungry for a win. They're a young team, and this is what happens with young teams. They got a lot of talent. Young teams have a couple of issues. Even, when you get all of the superstars coming out of college, they have to learn to play NBA level defense. That takes a few seasons. Then they have to learn to execute to close games. This takes a few seasons. And that's why, a whole bunch of people, especially come draft time, this guy's going to start right away and they're going to dominate right away. And you're getting hyped up on talent, but you don't know basketball, especially on the NBA level. Young teams, Detroit, if you look at Detroit's roster, they got a roster filled with talent. Because they've been stinky for so long, they get a whole bunch of top picks. And so they got a roster with talent. They got Cade Cunningham, really talented point guard, Jaden Ivey, Osar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, who I call B. Stoop. They got Jalen Duren. They got James Wiseman. These are all former number 1 picks, okay, high-level lottery picks. And they got them all on their team. Killian Hayes, Marcus Sasser. They got a nice crew of young talent. But we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but they don't know how to play NBA level defense, and they don't know how to execute down the stretch, which is why you'll see young teams get leads, make runs, and you're like, oh, they can win this game, and then they make some dumb mistakes down the stretch of the game, and the veteran team will come back and beat them. So, but you can't take this team lightly, okay? And I'm hoping Tibbs, this being the first of a back-to-back, if the Knicks are able to get a large lead against them going into the 4th quarter, that you rest your starters, because you're going to have Toronto at Toronto on Friday, okay? But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Anyway, y'all enjoy your Wednesday. I hope you're warm. Be safe out there. Shalom.